Okay, doctor, welcome back to another episode of Ingredients for a Better Life. I'm DNA Chef Jay, joined here by Dr. Robert Nettles, MD, founder, medical scientist from Stop and Regrow. How you doing today, doctor?
Doing great, Chef Jay. How are you doing on the holiday season?
Very well, doctor. Thanks for asking. Looking forward to another blessed year and a healthy and vibrant 2024. So let's get right down to it. What to expect age 50 and beyond. So this is a personal one for me as I'm approaching the big 50, and I know you're around the same age. And for a lot of people, this is a very difficult time, emotionally, mentally, to get around it and to kind of get over that. People think they're on the downward side of things, and besides you being a hair regrowth specialist, former hair transplant surgeon, you're also an age specialist because you're an anti-aging specialist rather. You've seen thousands and thousands of labs over time from people in their teenage years into their 90s. So looking at the facts and the science, what can we expect at this age, and what's your view from the medical science of it, 50 and beyond?
That's a very good question, Chef Jay. So you're coming up to the age of 50, and we're all going to age. That's just a part of lifetime. And what we've learned we've been fortunate to have, as you mentioned, to have observed data, both nutritional and genetic, over the course of 2 decades with patients aged 16 up until the age of 84. And we've been able to cross reference what happens when you regulate enzymes. And as you alluded to, the anti aging specialty back in when I started my training back in the early 2000s. And that specialty really centered around the science of enzymology, the enzymes, and regulating them, and understanding the physiology. And we had just discovered how the brain was communicating with the organs in the body. They're separated by space, but they're connected, as you know, by blood. And inside the blood is where the molecules reside. Now, what happens as we age, the molecules inside the bloodstream are altered by two different contact points. One would be nutrition. So the contact point there is, if we really mess up our diet over time, we're going to lead to having more of those types of molecules in the bloodstream. And the other contact is where genetics, where the enzymes are regulated, and we are designed to be optimal in our 20s and 30s. And then in our 40s and 50s and 60s, things start to change. And they change based on the physiology inside the human being. And the DNA starts to break down. Okay. Now, on a more detailed description of what happens is your total testosterone. So we know this word, we call it menopause. And if you ask a woman
Yeah.
who came up with the term menopause, you know it was a man, right? So
Mhm.
we said that because women, we observed their hormones, and we saw a huge decline, just a rapid declination in the major hormone in the body, which changes the absolute numbers. But we didn't understand the ratios, and those were determined by genetics. So now, fast forward 25 years of research into male physiology and molecular chemistry, and there's a new term that should be out on the horizon. That new term is termed menopause, named by a
Right.
man, but it's what happens to a man. And the same thing that women go through, a man will also go through between the ages of about 40 and 55. They will have a major rapid declination in their absolute volumes of certain types of hormones. Then genetically, you have an upregulation of some enzymes, a downregulation of the other ones, and you get this grumpy, anxious, depressed, aging man based on the estrogen imbalance. And then you get a softer, less muscular, less libido, less stamina, less desirable man because of a decrease in the influence of the circulating free or good testosterone. Then on top of that, Chef Jay, hair loss is triggered by an enzyme upregulation of the hormone DHT, prostate cancer, hair loss, oily skin, acne. All of these things will happen to us as we get older. Hence, we started changing this about 20 years ago. By regulating the enzymes, we found out we optimized the molecules inside the bloodstream. And instead of people aging over the course of decades, they've actually almost stalled the aging process. I'm almost 50. I've been on the Stop and Regrow Optimal Hair Health Program for 25 years, and I still have a six-pack. So you can get everything that you want accomplished in life if you've got a good strategy and you've got the right tools. And that all starts with the assessment of your individual blood results, which happens with the BRC test.
So let's back up a minute. Just so from what I understand, as you approach your 40s, your testosterone starts to decrease about 2 to 3% per year. So if you figure it out, by the time you hit 100, you're pretty much out of testosterone, and that is what causes us to die, right? I mean, is that in the 40s it starts to go down, or can it go down in the 30s and below for some people?
Well, Chef Jay, you've read what Dr. Google has always taught us, and you're 2 to 3% per year, and that's what we thought 25 years ago. After combing through the data from 6 continents and male, female, 18 to 84, that doesn't happen, unfortunately. There is a moment of truth where the hormones will rapidly decline over the course of 16, 18 months. So the 2 to 3% is what you would capture individuals in before or after the rapid declination. But we're talking about a number of 800 dropping to a new normal of 500. And from the 800 declining could be 2 to 3% until you hit the major decline. After the 500, you'll get another 2 to 3% decline, but you've already suffered that major rapid declination where you're no longer Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? You started to become that older version of yourself with no energy, no get up and go, no libido, just a lacking of the stamina that comes from the right balance, optimal molecules inside the bloodstream.
Well, it's a myriad of things as well, because I know that nutrition plays a huge part in this whole picture, with, as far as taking care of our cells. Like, can we talk for a moment about how our cells age and why it's important to take care of our cells through, your Stop and Regrow nutrition program, and why it's important to get enough of those HDL fats and enough of those good fats, which a lot of times people are lacking.
You are right, Chef Jay. So there's a lot that goes on inside each and every cell inside the human body, inside the DNA molecule. And most people at this point in time are familiar with DNA as the name, not maybe understanding it's a molecule, a biomolecule inside the cell that regulates the functions of the body. Well, the telomeres of the DNA will start to break down like most things. And when the DNA breaks down, then you'll have an unwinding of the DNA molecule, and then you'll have major cellular shifts and diseases and the way they function. Now, the way nutrition can prevent and safeguard some of those declinations of health statuses is by decreasing the free radicals. And the free radicals are basically describing the hydrogen ions. And the hydrogen ions would come in from a diet that would be too heavy on the LDL or the low density lipoproteins or the saturated fats. Saturated fats simply means it has more H's, hydrogen ions. So saturated fats are not good for the body. That's why, as you mentioned, we want the HDL, the unsaturated, less hydrogen ions. And we also want a diet that's caloric restricted. So the less calories, the less breakdown of the ATP molecules by producing energy inside the cells. And also a decrease in the sugar molecule, especially because of the hydrogen molecules. A carbohydrate is the sugar molecule, which is made of carbocarbon, oxygen O, hydrate, hydrogen. So you want to decrease the hydrogens. And that's where the protein molecule comes in, because we've got more of a nitrogen and less of the hydrogen. But inside the blood work, we can look at all of these individual molecules inside your body and give you pretty much an estimate of the condition of your rocket ship today and in the future, if you continue to go down the road that created the molecular volumes that we see inside the bloodstream.
Yeah, we'll put a link here to one of the episodes that we've done concerning the Okinawa blue zones and why those people, their nutrition is based off of their lifestyle. A lot of these people work into their elderly years, and they eat what is indigenous to the land versus our modern convenience-based, sugar-laden, soy-laden foods that people grab because we're so busy. We're too busy to take a sweet potato and put it in the oven, or take all these, things that are good for us. And we'll get to that. Just watch that episode if you missed that one. But um, I talked to a lot of people doing assessments and consultations for nutrition on the phone, and they say, "Oh, well, Chef Jay, I do really well because I eat frozen vegetables. I add frozen vegetables here, and I some days I eat nothing but broccoli." And they're missing out on what a cell is made of, which is protein, fat, and water, and there's no sugar in there. Um, so a lot of people just have this. We have this lack of education about what we should be eating to, because this all supports each other. Without the nutrition, the diet, the exercise, the supplementation, and most importantly, finding out what is inside our Nile River. And the only way to do that is to get the BRC report card. Let's just touch again, doctor. What is your biochemical report card blood test? I know what it is, but just to sum it up, what tell the people what this test will do, because this statistic is true, and I hope you'll agree with me. 50% of men at age 50 will probably have 50% less hair. 85% of all men will experience some kind of hair loss in their lives. Now, just because we're given that DNA from Uncle Joe or Uncle Charlie or your dad doesn't mean, and they have hair loss. Oh, I'm going to have hair loss. My father had it. His father had it. Not necessarily true anymore. So if you could just touch on the biochemical report card and this modern supplementation that we're able to do now to kind of adjust what these inherited enzymes are doing.
Right. So the BRC, or the biochemical report card, could be also termed the DNA test, the Dr. Nettles alopecia test, because we look at the underlying genetic and nutritional biomolecular components that will lead to disease cells, one of them being the hair cell, muscle cells, brain cells. And by looking at the hormone balance and the ratio, we can use deductive reasoning and a computer algorithm to find out the absolute doses of each molecule that need to be rearranged inside the bloodstream. Sounds pretty complicated, but at the end of the day, we have a mathematical formula that creates a personalized supplement to rebalance and optimize your personal biochemistry so that your cells can optimally be nourished.
Mm-hmm. Right. And it is true, because I've been on the program in excess of 5 years, and I have excellent head of hair now. We have some grays there, but we have hair there. And beyond that, we've identified other things within the what was happening inside with anxiety, all these hormonal things that as men we think, oh, well, estrogen's for women, that's not for us. But estrogen is unbiased and does not care who it who it attacks or the balancing of it. So, thank you for what you've done for me and a lot of the clients and people I know that you've helped, not only with this cosmetic indication. This hair loss is a cosmetic indication that something's wrong here, something's unbalanced. And the beauty of your program as well, beyond the vanity aspect and having a great head of hair, is identifying those things that when you go annually to your doctor, they're not checking for these things. They're still working out of a 1950s medical book saying, "Oh, why would I test for this?" So it's another important fact I want to get out to people, is that you're not going to get this test. You can't go to your medical doctor for your annual exam and say, "Hey, doc, I want what Nettles does. Can you check to see what my inherited enzymes are doing for hair loss?" They're going to say, we don't know how to do that. And what people are paying for your program is the research. And so that research, the 25 years of 25, I'm not sure, it's getting every year, it's going another year, right? So you've been over 20 years doing this research, thank God. And that's what people are paying for when they come in for this, is that. So I want to thank you, doctor, for the work that you do, not only for myself again, but for the others around the world. Like, this is not just in California anymore, like it started. Like, this is London, in Canada, in India. You can go anywhere there's a lab and a Wi-Fi connection. We can do this together. So I urge people to get that biochemical report card, blood test. Invest in yourself. The New Year's here, the holidays are here. We're so concerned about these frivolous, just expendable things that'll be out of style in a month. So whereas the best thing you could do is invest in yourself, get the biochemical report card, blood test, make it a better year, make 2024 the best year you can, and don't become a statistic. Don't become a statistic of cardiovascular disease. Don't become a diabetes statistic. You don't have to live that way anymore. So, thank you, doctor. And in closing, we're approaching the new year. I think we have one or two more episodes before we hit that New Year's. And hopefully, even if we reach one or two people that say, "Hey, I'm going to reach out and get this test done and figure out what's going on. I'm tired of the way I look and feel," then we're doing God's work. So thank you, doctor, for your time. Thanks for joining us, people, on Ingredients for a Better Life, and we'll see you next week.
My
God
pleasure.
bless,
Thank you,
doctor.
Chef Jay. God bless you. Thank you.
Take care.